even phone calls to an extent is dead because of the whole working from home part of the week. How have you got my number? Where's that come from? I feel that's not quite right either. But if I'm going to send 5 emails, 10 emails a week, they are going to be laser focused on you and your business. And hope that at some point that will resonate with you, or you at least save that email for when you get 10 minutes to sort of get to it. Has to be so focused about them.
My name's Mike Lander, and you're listening to Higgle, the B2B Sales Club podcast, where we bring you actionable insights about sales RFPs, negotiations, and difficult procurement discussions from sales leaders, brand leaders, and procurement leaders. Please subscribe to get updates when new episodes are released. Mike, thanks ever so much for joining me on Higgle, the B2B Sales Club podcast. Great to have you as a guest.
Thanks for inviting me. Excited for the chat.
Pleasure. So, why don't you just tell people that are listening, who are you, what do you do, and your favourite song and why?
I am Mike Fantis. I'm one of the VP managing partners of DAC here in the UK. I have over 20 odd experience within media, a little bit of a unicorn that I've done every job, starting from like an exec to an account manager, to actually running campaigns, to then managing relationships with clients, looking after ops, and now into sales and marketing roles. So kind of done everything.
You have really, haven't you? Yeah.
Which I think is a good thing, which I'm sure we'll come on to. My favourite song, I'm going to go with Never Too Much by Luther Vandross.
Why is that? Interesting.
I've got a brother who is quite a bit older than me, so I used to steal his music when I was young, and it kind of stuck with me. So I'm a bit of excuse the white beard, but I'm actually a bit of an older head in terms of the music that I like. Why that song? I just think it makes me happy. It makes me actually want to dance. It makes me it's emotive. It has that effect on me. We laugh about it, me and my wife, that, I'm not dancing until Luther comes on. When we're out and then he comes on and gosh, I'm out of my seat and good to go.
It's funny, isn't it? Every time I ask people, there's always a human connection. It's always a memory of something that happened like you and your brother. And that kind of, nicking his music when you were a kid, very common trait there. And it always evokes either fun, joy, and sometimes sadness, but always a reflection and always connected to human beings.
Yeah, I think the sadness goes to memories, doesn't it? But
Exactly right. Yeah. So let's get into the questions. Lazy sales. What do you mean and what's working instead? And be just brutally honest.
Yeah. So I come from a world where my career's been digital first. So as all of these kind of digital media agencies were popping up, I think the lazy sales crept in with it just thinking it was too easy for me to get you to move budget from print and above the line into digital, because I can prove to you what works and everything's measurable. And it just become lazy in terms of, I can save you on a CPC or a CPM. I can guarantee you this and I can do this for you, rather than it being business focused in terms of the outreach. So what happens now is that we meet brands and prospects, over hundreds in the year. And I ask them, how many emails do you get a week? They get hundreds. How many do you read? They say none. Mm-hmm. So because there's been no value put into that outreach, it's just become, I know agencies have a team of salespeople that that's all they do, hit phones, hit emails. They know they send 1,000 emails, nobody responds. 1,001, they get one response and they play the numbers game.
I think even worse, Mike, I think playing on that theme, personalization at scale, which is what AI's enabled us to do, buyers know that now. And they're like, well, I can't tell what's real and what's AI. And even if I can tell, I'm skeptical. So you know what? I'm just going to ignore all of them. And so what used to cut through, email had a half decent open rate and response rate. Now, I think that's falling through the floor.
Absolutely. I think the media landscape's become more convoluted. It's become more integrated. So now actually getting your USP or why should they open? Why should they read? Why should they care about you or what you've just said? That's become really hard for our prospects to decipher, right? How do you get to that, this is why you should care moment in 3 seconds? It's quite hard to explain. I know everyone has an elevator pitch, right? And getting that down to 30 seconds, 20 seconds is an art in itself. Getting it down to 3 seconds of attention on email is nearly impossible.
So what's working instead? How do you build, because we all have to do it, we all have to build net new relationships. And for any marketing agency, I always have a proxy of, they probably carry forward 80% of their revenue from last year. So if you're doing 10 million of fee income, you've probably got 2 million of go-get in the next year. If your average order values even 250K, which is probably a bit high, that's still 8 new clients, 8 new logos. That's 1 a month-ish. That's a lot. So what's working
It is a lot.
It is a lot, isn't it? When you break it down, you're like, actually, that's an awful lot. What's working in terms of building new relationships, and how long is it taking now?
So our CEO mentioned something to us when he acquired our agency, and we've got a few acquisitions and a few startups as we've grown into Europe. But he believes and believed it takes 7 years to build a business as a general theme. So if we use that kind of thinking, we're meeting brands today or this year for 27. There is nothing that, we're under no illusions if I meet a brand at an event that, there's no brief. They're never going to say, oh, I'm ready. You could pitch to me tomorrow. That just doesn't happen, does it?
So for anyone listening, that's at least 12 months. If you meet someone today, it's at least 12 months before a relevant opportunity that you stand a greater than 30% chance of winning actually shows up that's worth it for you and for the brand. That's 12, probably 18 months. And that's a barrier, Mike. I think that's now one of the barriers to growth. And the agencies have to invest in longer term relationship building.
Absolutely. I mean, we tell our clients that we need to fill the pipeline, not just worry about the conversion funnels. So it's the same for us, right? We've got to do exactly what we preach. So that's one thing. We need to fill the pipeline. We need to make sure that our organic growth is as good as it can be. So we can't take our eye off the existing clients. We have to make sure that we're trying to grow those relationships as much as possible. We do see quite a bit of referral. So clients that move around, we make sure we stay in touch with them. If we've done a good job for them, they trust us. So we've got a pitch coming up that has come from an existing relationship. I had a LinkedIn email yesterday. I probably pitched to them 5 years ago, 6 years ago. Didn't win, but they ended up doing everything in-house, what we pitched at the time. But he's just come around now. So, that's obviously doing a good job in the room and then feeling like they trust us. All right, they went in a different direction. But
that's a 5-year relationship. I remember a partner of mine, Gary McElraith, years ago at KPMG, back in the day when, this is like 98, and when sales CRMs weren't really a thing. And he had a little book. No, in fact, he had, remember the old roller card index, the roller index thing? I'm like, Gary, what are you doing? He's like, every week, I pick 5 of these people and I call them, I message them, I go out for a lunch, I do a drink, I keep in touch, I add some value, I bring an insights report, I tell them about a case study, I do something that adds value to their life every week without fail. And I said, okay, I think I know why, but why? He's like, because that's where the business comes from, Mike. Long-term relationship building, where they start to trust you as an advisor.
Yeah, I totally buy into that. Don't get me wrong, we still need some of those quicker things to be happening at the same time. But if you don't do that, the pipeline will empty pretty quick. So we go after the longer term relationships. We look after and stay in touch with people that we've worked with and met over time. We are noticing more and more that the pitch consultants and intermediaries are playing a bigger role of decent sized media briefs. So we actually have a process of nurturing the relationship with each of them, which has been a thing this year, which we'll take into next year. So not only are we staying in touch with clients, prospects, previous, historical clients, we've got a whole new audience here that we need to say, hey, don't forget about us. Don't forget about our positioning. You ever speaking to clients that match this? We're ready, we're good for you, sort of thing. So that's another thread that we have to look out for. And then, you're hoping that over time, longer ones, they start to drop in and you keep generating those longer relationships. And we've had a really good year. So we've got a mixture of the sources of those new contracts has been a mixture. Events that we've been to previously, historical relationships.
So if we talk about a simple hierarchy, we're basically saying, I think, obviously, first of all, it's your existing clients, retain the relationship and hopefully grow. Secondly, it's getting them to refer you to others. Maybe third is brands you used to work with that you no longer do, that you reactivate. Next one probably is people that move on. And then, so we're 4 or 5 levels in now. Then you're into, I'm going to events, I'm running breakfasts, I'm speaking at conferences, all that stuff, which is the in-person stuff. Down the list, quite a long way, is cold outreach on email.
And we still do that, even though we sort of know, it's like you just feel like you have to, even though we know it's, not going to generate, huge responses. But we have turned away from the bulk. We don't do that. It's gone, dead. Even phone calls to an extent is dead because of the whole working from home part of the week. How have you got my number? Where's that come from? I feel that's not quite right either. But if I'm going to send 5 emails, 10 emails a week, they are going to be laser focused on you and your business. And hope that at some point that will resonate with you, or you at least save that email for when you get 10 minutes to sort of get to it. But it has to be so focused about them.
And talk to me about what kind of research you're doing. How do you find the insight? How do you find the aha moment, the golden nugget?
Our agency focuses on omnichannel and what we call brand to local, which means our sweet spot are brands that are trying to win in e-commerce or lead gen, but also have physical footfall.
So clicks and bricks. Yeah.
Yeah. Really interesting because it falls between cracks because there's digital activity that is driving that footfall, but the retail team doesn't control that.
And you got to join the dots up to see where they came from, if you can.
If we can. But it's also a lot of did you know, because you're looking after this, but you're actually an e-com person, but you're managing a digital asset, but the user actually wants to come into store. So here's a disconnect that we can show you, and there's some friction there. We also have some software that really relates to the retail team specifically, which we know falls outside of media briefs or media agreements. So that tends to help because I'm not waiting for a media review. I'm not waiting to replace someone. I'm trying to tell them there is something I can help you with today. Yes, we're here for the longer term, but did you know this is happening? I've noticed this. This is what people are saying about your business. This is why people are maybe not buying, or this is what the competition are doing better than you. So it becomes a today, real time. This is what's happening. Live example. Every business, every CEO says the customer is at the heart of everything they do, right? We have to look after our businesses. And if you show them, actually, here's what they're saying. And I'm not saying you don't care about them, but because the digital team are looking after it, they don't care as much as you do. So you need to get control over this.
And if you've got a lack of integration between your clicks and mortar team internally, the customer's feeling that as well. Because really, you want to be able to go into a shop having done your research to buy a pair of trainers or shoes or trousers or whatever. And they kind of know what you've been looking at. Ideally, they know exactly what you've been looking at and they've got it ready for you and it's in store, which also connects up with the warehousing bit. It's like, if they've got a stock out and the customer's taken the trouble to go to the store, but it's out of stock, that's just irritating. That's just really annoying.
We just done a piece, actually, weirdly, that you mentioned that, Mike, but I've done a piece about how brands are pushing the customers online. Yes, we kind of, through just ease and get a bit lazy, we're moving online, but now you notice when you go into a store,
you're like, exactly.
Appreciate it.
Yeah.
There's a reason why I've stopped coming into store. So the pressure and the onus is obviously back onto the brand to really up their game. There is going to be a lot of opportunity in this space for brands to.
And you're ahead of the curve, which is good news. Hopefully. By the way, Mike, so before the next question, why have you got football posters in your background? I'm not a football fan, but you clearly are tuned into football. Yeah. Why is that? What is it?
It's just kind of one of my hobbies. in terms of memorabilia, and they all kind of mean something. The grey one was my favourite player growing up. I really resonated with him. John Barnes. I was probably the only brown boy in the school football team. I was left-footed like he is and was. So I just loved watching him. The one sort of over there, one of my closest friends went to a work event where Kevin Keegan was going to be the sort of speaker on his table type of thing. It was coming up to my birthday. He bought a retro shirt.
Amazing.
Got Kevin Keegan to sign it for me, and that was my 40th. So we're doing terribly at the minute, but that makes me not want to blur my background even more, because I don't want to be a fair weather fan where it's only when we're good.
Can rain or shine. No,
don't worry.
Still there.
Still here.
Since childhood. Still there.
He's still here. Yeah.
So, question 2. Answer today, plan for tomorrow. What do you mean by that? And how do you get the balance right?
I think there is always a brief behind a brief. It's the first thing. So, yes, we need to answer the brief, but what is it that we're working on one at the moment? There were 6 or 7 things that they've asked for, but ultimately, when you break it down, it's bookings and revenue, really. How we get there is how we get there, but everything, all roads lead to revenue and bookings for that particular prospect. So really making sure that we don't just say, well, the best thing to do in here, in this channel, and best practice, and that's how we do. Is it going to make them money? As it get, great. That's a really good, less of the theory and more, what does it really mean for my business? I think super important. I think that brands don't know what they want until they see it, to a certain extent. So the brief will say, this is my media budget and this is what I think I need. And you go, okay. And then we show them this brand's a local. Your brief hasn't mentioned the stores, but we're going to show you how you save money, or a user wants to go in store, you're still trying to push them online. There's a disconnect there. So I'm just going to show you how we could maybe do that better. So the brief didn't say that. I answered the brief, but I also told them, what does best look like, best in class, or what does the future look like, or what does working with us, what the kind of questions will we be asking and challenging you and your business. So I think that's crucial, that you're thinking about that, but also that long-term thinking it makes you think about their business. So it's not me saying the future of media, or, it's the future of your business. What does that look like? That these silos might be here, but will your business survive if you carry on doing that? Or at some point things have to change, or everyone talks about AI. Understanding what does AI mean for their business, not just for us. Of course, we're going to tell them how it makes us better, but what does it mean for our customers find them? What does it mean for how they can be more efficient in their business? I think if you understand and show that level of insight into a prospect's business, that means they're thinking, well, I don't really want to be doing this pitch process again in 3 years.
I think we talked before the recording about the report that's out from Verity RI, the relationship report. And I have no commercial connection with them. I happen to know their head of growth. But really interesting is that what brands want, what brands crave, is what you just talked about, strategic advice. What's happening in my industry? Where am I behind? Where am I ahead? Is that competitive moat shrinking, or is it getting wider? What can you do to help me grow market share, grow the category, omnichannel approach? That's what they want. And I also spoke to someone called Phil Squire recently about, he's actually on the podcast in January, about what buyers want from sellers. And we were talking about, before you can challenge their thinking, you've got to earn the right. If you meet someone brand new and you start really challenging them, unsurprisingly, they walk away. So you've got to relate first and earn some respect and understand their business, and then talk about the industry, and then get into, your model currently that could be improved. There's things that you're missing that we could help with.
Yeah, no, I totally buy into that. And I do think it might be a strength of mine, given that I work in sales, have done all the jobs before, like we said, but also we started our own agency. So I kind of know that pressure of making sure we pay everyone every month, but understand business in general. That means we're asking those pointed questions really good example, when we talk about retail and connecting digital, I might say to a brand, give me your bottom performers. So you'll have a league table, everyone does. And then maybe we can provide a test for you to look at. But then I'll say, when you tell me your bottom performers, what is it that makes them bottom? Is it the revenue? Is it what covers? Is it footfall? And it's like revenue. And I was like, okay, what about revenue by square footage of each of the stores? And again, they're just like, well, okay, no one talks to me like that. And talks to me about understanding a retail footprint or a different in
covers, how many times you turn it over, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. It's basic business stuff, isn't it, really? But yeah, it should be. It should be. And I think that's something that I try to bring to every conversation.
To sit in their shoes, genuinely to walk in their shoes as much as you can and understand their pressures and how their business works and what their pressures they're under from their investors, their stakeholders, their other shareholders. And then you start to think, yeah, if it was my money, who would I spend it with and why? Well, the one that's going to create more value at the lowest risk.
Also got burnt once on a startup business. I was quite young in my career, so I dipped out of my marketing career to sort of give this business a bit of a push. I didn't feel like I could, and my voice was loud in the room, or I didn't maybe use it as I should. And I wasn't happy with the media plan because of that. Because I was like, well, this media plan doesn't reach me and I'm the audience. It sounds obvious, doesn't it? But same with like how we're trying to sell B2B. We know that when someone adds us on LinkedIn, then sends us a sales message straight away that we hate it. So why would we do it?
Exactly.
So yeah, always keep yourself in their customer's shoes. Try and understand as much as you can.
So the pitch process, what's working, what isn't working, and what are your kind of top tips? And do you want to just explain, when I say to people the pitch process, a lot of people have different perspectives of when that pitch process starts. Some think it's in the room. Some think it's in the relationship building. Some think it's in the chemistry. Some think it's in I've got the RFP. What's the kind of what's the box that you put around the pitch process, start to end?
So when we say the pitch process, that's through RFP, through chemistry. There's a date in the calendar. That's the pitch. We get our chance to win, basically. All the hoops we've jumped through before is all well and good, and you need to get through those hoops to get to that pitch process. But that is the process. So we start with the brief. We start with who it should be in the room. We start with, have we done this before? Expertise, case studies, all of that sort of stuff. Then we obviously put the layout, and that's kind of our job at a senior level to manage structure and then say, right, this is the flow, the story. I think that underutilized, maybe not always possible, but normally there's a friendly face in the room. Now, it doesn't necessarily mean a friend, but it means somebody that's been involved throughout the process that you may be spoken to 5 times, 10 times, whatever it may be, to have got to this stage. So to have done that, there's been some chemistry. We've been through the chemistry session. There's been some bond, or some likability factor there. I don't think enough businesses, agencies leverage that relationship in terms of, look, we're not going to take you through the whole thing, but this is the flow, story, this is what we're planning. Any pointers? Are we on the right? We're not going to show them everything, but just because if they say yes, they can't say post pitch, oh, you missed the mark there, did you? So you're kind of ticking both boxes. You're giving them a chance to guide you, but you're also getting their buy-in before you even started the pitch.
And this is particularly in a non-RFP situation whereby it's not being run by procurement, because you might have problems talking to stakeholders then. If it's not run by procurement, but it's still a big piece of work, that's what I was always taught to do. In consulting, that's precisely how we do it. We used to call it pre-syndication in the sales process. My partner used to say to me, Katani used to say, by the time we get in the room, Mike, everyone knows where we are. Everyone knows what's coming. We're now into what haven't we covered, what's on your mind. But people are either aligned or we know where they're not aligned and we can address their concerns. I always call it walking. Katani used to say, you walk into a room without any syndication, pre-syndication. It's a dartboard exercise. They're just going to throw darts at you because they can. Not because they're being mean, But just because it's like,
So we call
I don't know who you are. I have no relationship with you. Don't know who you are. You made a lot of assumptions. Quite a few of them are wrong. I'm going to tell you they're wrong. And that's what you're trying to avoid.
So we call it a pre-read, but we do it, if they want a pre-read, they can have a full pre-read, but we're calling it a kind of a light pre-read. Are we good on kind of direction and stuff like that? I think what you mentioned, procurement, which is an interesting one, because we spoke previously, didn't we, about trying to get in front of more procurement people, because ultimately that is also another relationship, and they're in the room. So that doesn't hurt, having a relationship with them as well. So even with those guys now part of the process, I still want to do that. So I think that's huge. The obvious one is the rehearsal, like your chemistry in the room, especially if it's not in the room and you're doing it online. Like, is that slick? How you move between presenters and slides and all of that sort of good stuff. My dev director, I've known him 20 odd years, only recently this year got him to come over to our place. He's really big on this. Tell them what you're going to tell them, and then tell them what you've told them.
Exactly.
And it sounds obvious and basic.
Good old-fashioned basics.
But it's true as an anchor for you. What are you going to tell them? Have you told them everything you wanted to? And have you then summarized and said, I wanted you to take away these points? I think we do it now. We're still in rehearsal and we're saying, right, every slide, what is it we want them to take away from this? And then at the end of that sort of section, these are the things we want to make sure they remember about that. And then just making sure.
So a couple of things. Exec summaries. I still see now 90% of presentations, proposal documents from agencies going to clients with no exec summary. Instead, the opening part is, we were founded in 1974 in a shed in my garden with Fritz the dog. And it was very lonely. It was only me. And then I won a client. And then I'm like, we're bored. We've lost interest. No interest. A really high quality exec summary up front. And the second thing, I was taught many years ago by McKinsey. I was very fortunate to be taught by McKinsey as a consultant when I was working at Barclays on the client side. And anyone from McKinsey listening, I may not get this perfectly right, but the principle was, on a slide, one key graphic on the slide, a header that told you what the slide's about, and a footer that gave you the insight. And they reckon you could read a pack through the headers and footers and know what's going on and understand the insights and get to the real point. And I rarely see that.
Yeah. I think and we've done presentation training before for the team, but it's always a good exercise when they say, right, this is the theme, go and work on a presentation. You can only use 5 slides. And you're like, okay, so there's no text. I mean, you're going to make sure that you can talk it through and you're supported by the odd image here and there. Yeah, I think that's definitely something we anchor to, making sure it's clear in terms of that summary. And I think the other thing I would say, the obvious thing, you kind of touched on it, but not about you. It's about them. Really, you want them to ask you about you at the end, because that's a buy-in. So, when they get to, so who will be working, exactly. How big are you? Great. Yeah. You want to know more about us? Then we've done a good job. So I think I know it's an old thing, but definitely still rings true.
So I spoke to someone called Michelle Cleary the other week, marketing procurement expert, has bought marketing services at scale for many, many years. And I said to Michelle, what percentage of, when it's in the room, so the shortlist, 3 agencies in the room, we're going to select one of the 3. All 3 of them could do the job, or else you wouldn't be in the room, number 1. So then it's like, okay, so how do you differentiate? How do you distinguish? And she said, what's interesting is that relationship bit, the chemistry bit, the way you interact, the way that you behave as a team, that can be 20% to 40% of the score on the day. That's the bit that can really, really make you stand out. When we say as procurement people, remember when Mike said this thing? He was from that agency, remember? And he said this thing, and we talked about it and we dug into it. There wasn't really an exact answer, but it was really interesting where we ended up in that conversation. That's what you want. Because everyone can technically do the job.
Yeah, you stole my last point, Mike.
Ah!
My
The synchronicity.
last point, I suppose I can maybe expand on it because, again, these are not new things, but salespeople tend to not say no to many opportunities, do they? Because it's the pressure's
they
there.
Don't exactly. If it's an opportunity, I'll take it. Yeah.
I think what we're getting better at all the time is we're not trying to be everything for everyone. But what that means is when we do reach the pitch, we can easily carve out a positioning for ourselves and for them to remember that we were the different agency. Even more important, talking back to the pitch consultants, making them understand, look, you don't want 5 agencies, 3 agencies that are all going to sound the same. We're going to sound different. And the brief might not ask for us, but we will bring a different view of the world. So they want something different, unique. You don't want to be just churning out the same media stories all the time. So I think making sure you go for the right briefs and then making sure that your point of difference is clear is fundamental. That can come in, various ways. It could be your offerings very different. It could be your experience, your vertical understanding is what sets you apart. Whatever it is, but that has to land. If it doesn't land, you're just, like you say, just another agency.
You're just another forgettable agency that came a close second. And when you ask me, what happened? It's like, well, it's really close. You came second. These are the key points. This is where you could have improved things. But it was close, but unfortunately, not today.
I've got a bit of a funny relationship with the feedback loop because you crave it, right? You need it and you put a lot of effort into pitching. But I sometimes feel like when you ask, you're prompting them to say something. And sometimes a lot of the time, feedback's good, but sometimes I'm listening. I'm like, you're saying these things just because I've asked you to say something. And you feel like but actually it was, let's break it down. It was chemistry, or you've actually gone with an agency you've already worked with, or you've worked with before, or there was something probably a bit more top level or basic rather than some of the nitty gritty that you get into. You can't not ask for it. You need it. But I do sometimes, it's like, what's the analogy I can give? It's, a waiter will ask you or a waitress will ask you, would you like still or sparkling water? Because it will make you choose one rather than saying, no, I don't want water. It's like when I ask you for feedback, oh yeah, I've got to tell you something now. And I've got to do something. It was a rubbish analogy, but something where it's kind of, we do it and we ask for it, but yeah.
Ask the difficult question. I would absolutely advise, ask the difficult question about, thanks for any detailed feedback you get. That's really helpful to us. We'll feed that back into the process. But just answer me kind of one thing. Honestly, what was the big reason? What was the major reason that you picked someone else? You don't have to name them, but what was it that they did that we all failed to do? Just give me the headline. And then most people will go, yeah, actually, they had a really, really deep point of view on the automotive industry that none of the rest of you really got. You kind of played to it, but not really. Because to your point, otherwise, I have to not make stuff up, but I have to dig deep and go, slide 47 wasn't quite right. And the Jane and John didn't quite gel when they spoke in the... Yeah, that's all true. It's not the reason. It's not the major
I think there
reason.
is probably, I'd say that you're really very on the button, I would say there, in terms of there is normally a fundamental reason. Yeah.
There's something big.
Yeah.
There's a fundamental reason.
We're very open to that feedback and we want to know. And otherwise you don't get better again.
You don't learn. So Mike, if you were listening to the show and you were the head of growth in an agency that's maybe 50, 100 people looking into 2026, we're in December now, going, okay, what are the big themes I could take from this? What's the kind of couple of things I could take away and do next year? What are the couple of things that you think that head of growth should be thinking about as they go into next year about net new business?
I would start with looking at themselves. What are they good at? Who are they made for? What's their story? And then really, really nail that and repeat it till people know exactly kind of who you are. Now, we haven't cracked that yet. We're in the process of doing that. It's hard because of that. We need more business. Can't just cherry pick. But ultimately, if you're going to get cut through, that's, how you're going to start that journey. Look at your prospects. We call it when we speak to clients, micro moments. Where are they? Who are they? What do they do? Where do they go? Like, which events are right for you? Where are they going to, where are you going to get that highest sort of penetration of your target brands that you need to hit and find? And then think about their business as the third thing. Think about the consultative style, because it's not going to be a brief's not going to turn up on your doorstep tomorrow. So have the patience in your stories, right, for those brands. Don't lose confidence, because sales is hard and you end up reverting to type or cutting corners or looking for anything to sell. Stay in your lane, and then, nurture it just how you want to be sold to, sell in that same way.
Brilliant. Mike, it's been amazing. Thanks ever so much. Where can people find out more about you?
On LinkedIn, definitely. I do a lot of posting. I share as much as I can from DAC's own LinkedIn page as well. So between myself and DAC's own LinkedIn profile, you'll get everything that you need to find on a brand to local strategy. There you go.
Excellent. There we go. Mike Fantis, it's been amazing. Thank you.
Thanks, Mike. Appreciate it.
Thanks for listening to Higgle, the B2B Sales Club podcast series with your host, Mike Lander. Please subscribe so that you'll catch all the next episodes.